welcome back to the 5 O'Clock Sweats podcast. Well, as always, kind of, I'm Ryan, joined by my one handsome friend tonight,
Chris.
And tonight, Chris and I were going to run a duo episode. I know Derek and I have had a couple of duo episodes where we've talked about things that we enjoy that Chris doesn't necessarily enjoy, mostly anime. But tonight, since Derek's not able to attend, Chris and I figured we would talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts. And you might be thinking like, oh, the Eagles just signed Saquon Barkley, might talk some birds, some football. Well, that ain't the case tonight, folks. We're gearing up for at least my favorite sport, and that is baseball. And it's right around the corner. It always seems to sneak up on you after football season's done. All of a sudden, you got pitchers and catchers reporting for spring training, and they play a month of games, and all of a sudden, the games start counting, and the opening day's here. And we're at that time now. We're about 2.5 weeks away from opening day, and I think there's actual games being played next week in that Seoul series with the Dodgers and Padres, I think. But anyway, we have baseball on the horizon, and we're both super excited about it. So we figured we'd take this episode to just talk about baseball, talk about our personal experience with baseball, maybe when we were first exposed to it, playing it as kids, and then just talk some general stuff about Major League Baseball and whatnot later on in the episode. So I think we should start with maybe our first exposure to baseball. Chris, do you want to start? When was your first experience with baseball? Who or what drew you to the game?
All right. So my first experience with baseball is I was real little, maybe 2, 3, somewhere in that area. And growing up, my neighbors, they're actually my godparents, and their son's probably 15 years older than me. So, he was playing baseball at the time that I was real little. And so, his dad, my godfather, basically they started setting me up in the side yard with wiffle ball, the big plastic bat.
Yeah.
With the giant barrel and I think there was a tee, it was like a Fisher-Price baseball set or something. So we were kind of doing that. And the running joke back then was they taught me how to scratch and spit.
Oh my God.
So I'm 4 years old doing that. So that was my first experience, with baseball. And then of course, my dad got me into t-ball, which we are so old that I won't name the school, but back in our time for t-ball, it was actually the field at our school that we went to growing up. It's that field's since disappeared, and I think they do t-ball elsewhere where the rest of the fields are. But it was just they're like, oh, those kids suck so bad, just don't let them around the fields. put them over across the town. But anyway, and I just remember, obviously we're all learning, but I took to baseball pretty quickly. Both my enjoyment of the game and also I got pretty good pretty quickly. And I just remember the early years of baseball being so damn frustrating, because it's very accessible at that time, right? I mean, you're not talking about even high school ball, it's not really all that competitive in terms of the skill yet. So you have a lot, their skill gap is just ginormous. You have kids that are taking lessons, playing travel ball. The parents are buying them $300 bats, they're taking it serious. And then you have kids that they show up late to every game with sunburn because they were sitting on the beach all day. You know what I mean? And they come into the dugout eating like a hot dog. It's just it's all over the board. But I just remember I took it probably too seriously, as I probably do with everything. And I just remember being quite frustrated with the kids that wouldn't take it seriously. So I quickly became quite competitive with baseball. And I think actually that's probably the first time that I became and realized that I was a fairly competitive person.
Yeah.
Also too, my dad coached pretty much all of my teams from T-ball all the way through prep. So prep,
Okay.
that's what our local town called, basically like it was like between Little League and then Babe Ruth. It was called prep. Like, you're
I do
prepping
remember
for
that.
Babe Ruth.
Yep.
So that was about 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, yeah, it was about like 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. And then Babe Ruth was like 8th grade, possibly freshman, because it was age based. So, you could be in high school and still be on the Babe Ruth team. And that's where, there were a lot of fights, having my dad as a coach, but I have, to be honest, like even the bad ones, like I have good memories of all that. That was always, fun. And now that I'm a parent, I look at that and like, I appreciate it more because I'm thinking to myself, like, I didn't realize it at the time, but how much time my dad was like committing towards, I mean, I realized, but I didn't realize like how difficult it is to balance that versus everything else.
Yeah, now you've got context.
Yeah, I would, come home from school and then like I'd eat something and we go to the field. And like, I'm thinking to myself nowadays, it's like, you got to do everything in the morning, then go to work, and then like somehow try to like squeeze out of work, early enough to get there, but also prep for the, for the game, make a lineup. We had practices. It was a lot. So I definitely appreciate it more nowadays, but that was always fun. And I have fond memories of baseball growing up, I would say. And you might agree, but I think like the Little League years were my favorite years.
It's hard to beat Little League. Little League was so just wholesome.
Yeah.
And fun. Like, that's all it was fun, really.
It really was. And I don't know about other towns, but at least our town, like, I don't know if the enrollment still is the way it is, but I mean, we fielded a lot of teams, in our Little League, and it was competitive. I mean, again, I know there's a lot of kids that like, you could tell their parents were forcing them to play, but like there was also a lot of competitive, dads, coaches, and of course, us as kids, very competitive. So if I had to pick a favorite time, it was definitely Little League. I would say least favorite time of baseball ever was probably high school.
I know. I was going to say it's
by a landslide.
It's not even close, and I'll get into that later. I have my own reasons why, but
you could go ahead. Well, actually, I don't really know when you were introduced to baseball.
Well, I could tell you my very first introduction to baseball, because there's picture. I don't have memories of it, but there's pictures, and there's a picture in particular. My when I was very little, I had to have been like maybe 2. Barely. My parents took me to a Baltimore Orioles game in Camden Yards, and I think the heat index that day was like mid-90s, pushing 100. They're bringing their little baby boy to this game, and you can just look at the picture. Like, I'm sweating. I'm a baby, and I'm sweating in the picture, which is fitting given how much I sweat nowadays. But But yeah, that was really my first taste of baseball, was seeing the Orioles play at Camden Yards, even though I have no recollection of it. But I keep hearing stories. And I'm like, why did you guys bring me to that game? Like, that was a dangerous decision.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of fitting, flirting with heat stroke at a baseball game, which is now my favorite sport. So that was my first real exposure to it. And then like pretty much the same story as you. My dad got me, and my mom too. She had a really heavy hand in teaching me how to play. But T-ball, just having catches in the yard. Funny story is that I'm actually, and you know this, I'm a left-handed swinger. That's because my mom, but I'm right-handed. So that's because my mom, when I was growing up, I would pick up a bat. I would naturally pick it up left-handed. I don't know why. That's what felt right. She never corrected me. So to this day, even if it's baseball, golf, anything, swinging a club or a bat, I'm swinging lefty. It just feels natural to me. I feel stronger. And you don't want to see me try to swing it on the right-handed because it's not pretty.
That's like Jim Tomei vibes.
Hey, yeah. I think Bryce Harper too. I think Bryce Harper's a right-handed thrower, left-handed.
Is he? Oh,
I think so. I think.
Isn't that a weird thing? You like take it for granted. You don't even like think about that.
Yeah, no, it's just natural at this point. I think it's cool. I like it. And then T-ball growing up, and then what was minor league? I guess they called it minor league. Technically, was the between t-ball and little league. Man, those games were watching them as an older, like as a teenager and like as a young adult. Looking back, I'm like, those games must have been so rough to watch because these kids aren't hitting, they're not fielding, they're not throwing. They're trying, and
well,
there's
they're
a rare
trying.
exception.
They're trying, and there's a lot of crying. And I remember I cried once in minor league. I don't remember why. And some guy, this is like plain as day, and I have no idea who this dude is. Might have been like the ghost of Babe Ruth. But he says to me as I'm in the dugout, he goes, there's no crying in baseball. And he's on the outside of the fence, but like, we had those, you remember those like kind of ghetto dugouts where it was literally just like a cage, a
chain link fence.
Yeah, just a cage. So you could, you know what I mean? Like there was no back to the dugout, so to speak. So yeah, this guy was just telling me that, and I was pissed at him, but then like I like kind of carried that with me forever. I was like, that's true.
And then you realized it wasn't an original quote, that it was from a movie.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't know it at the time, but. And then I also was like, you know what? Okay, there's no crying, but there is cursing, and so that's how
a lot of cursing. Yeah.
I picked up a lot of cursing, and and I'm not proud of that. But yeah, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah, and then that minor league going into little league. That's when I really started to take the game a little more seriously. Like I was like, okay, I really enjoy playing this game. I think I've got potential. I started going to a coach, like a clinic on the side. It was a friend of my dad's. I think the family.
Yeah.
The Kerns, as you know. Big Daddy Kern, he took me under his wing, and we used to have training sessions in his backyard. He would have me swing off a tee, swing it, do a little soft toss into the net, craft my swing, hone my stance a little bit. I experimented with several different stances, like an open stance, like a classic lefty open stance, to like a more closed in stance with my foot up, with my toe up, kind of with my heel facing the pitcher, for like a timing mechanism thing, which actually kind of worked for a bit. And then I also wanted to be a pitcher. Like I really wanted to pitch, and we practiced pitching a lot. It never translated to the field, though. I was awful on the mound. I started pitching in Little League a little bit. They gave me some opportunities, and I just couldn't find the strike zone. Just could not do it. And I was wild, not effective whatsoever. It didn't last very long. And but yeah, and also in Little League, they also looked at me, which I was like a stocky, kind of a chubby kid. They're like, okay, catcher, which I tried it and I hated it. I just too much stress on my young knees, and just it was so hot with all that equipment on. Like, respect to any catcher, especially at the big league level. Like, I don't know how they do it. I was like, I basically told the coach, like, this is not for me. I will not be happy if I have to do this every game. So that transitioned from that, and then I went to first base, which was my favorite position. I loved first base. I'm not the tallest person, so I'm not the biggest, but I was a unit. I was a stubby unit. But I'm not the tallest guy, so I didn't have the ups to catch some of those high throws. But I had a lot of fun. I thought I was pretty good with that. It was pretty good with the hand-eye coordination, so I could pretty much catch anything that was in my catch radius. I could jump a little bit, got the scoop down. And just fun because you're just involved in like almost every play, out at first base, catching the ball, throwing around the diamond. And then I would play outfield a little bit, which wasn't as fun. I remember there's a memory I have, and I don't have many specific memories from Little League, but I do have a couple, and one of them is misjudging a fly ball in right field. And it's one of those line drives, which is the hardest ball to play in the outfield. You don't know. You feel so helpless. You're just kind of standing there because you're not sure. Your depth perception's not kicking in yet. You're like, is this going over my head? Is this in front of me? Where should I go? Well, I made a mistake, took one step in, which is what you never want to do that in the outfield. Take your first step back, keep the ball in front of you. It went over my head. and I was not happy. I let my emotions get the best of me. I was, I had a little hissy fit in the outfield. I ran for the ball, obviously, because I was like, well, there's guys circling the bases, could be inside the park home run. Threw the ball in, and then just threw my glove on the ground, like on the grass, as soon as I threw it back into the infield.
No
And
way.
was so upset with myself. Yeah, it was like a big moment in the game. I think the guy ended up scoring. It was either a triple or an inside the park home run.
I feel like I can picture this. You were probably like, you had a little bit of like long hair, and you were probably just beat red, just like freaking out.
Yeah, my cheeks were always rosy back then. And I mean, you would know because we played together. So
yeah,
the Cubs, the Chicago Cubs.
No, I wasn't on the Cubs.
Oh, you were on the Cubs? I thought you were.
I was on the Mets.
Oh yeah, you were on the Mets.
That then turned to the Yankees. Because
blasphemy.
they told us that we had to get rid of the Mets because they were changing uniforms or something, so we had to change to a different team. So I don't know who decided this, but we changed to the Yankees, and then some other team changed to the Mets.
Oh my god, that's so dumb. That's so sad.
I was so pissed, but yeah. So yeah, I could see you out there. You had a little bit of a temper.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was an emotional kid growing up, and especially when it came to baseball, because I'm also competitive. But two other memories. One, I struck out or something. I struck out to end the game, and I think there were like guys on base or something. Like I could have tied or won the game with a hit. I struck out, and I got so pissed off myself. I was swinging at the fence with the new bat that my dad got me, the DeMarini or whatever. Yeah, not great. And then another Little League memory was we were talking about this pre-stream. Was I once got hit? I think I set the league record in hit by pitches because I crowded the plate. That was like part of my strategy was to crowd the plate, not because I wanted to get hit, but because I wanted to tighten the strike zone for the pitcher. Not thinking, looking back, these are Little League pitchers. Like they don't have the precision and the control that Major League pitchers have. They can't really put it where they want it every time. So me crowding the plate, I'm just flirting with getting hit by a pitch each time. I got hit by a pitch 3 times in one game, like in the same spot, right on the right here, right on like the tricep, like where the tricep meets the bicep, right in that spot.
The arm's not too bad. The back and the I've gotten hit like on inner thigh, like just like weird, like weirdly, like those are the worst ones. I think like the legs,
inner thigh, hands. Obviously, those are awful. Yeah, I mean, there's worse places to get hit, but I was feeble back then. Like I wasn't like, I don't know. I was sensitive to that sort of thing. And it happened 3 times. And I was just like, I took it personally and I was not happy. My mom's in the stands, like saying stuff to the, I don't think she was saying stuff to the pitcher because obviously he didn't mean it. It just happened. But yeah, those are a couple of memories. And just like you said, after that, we went to the prep and then eventually Babe Ruth and then eventually high school, which is where the fun ended
quickly
for us.
I think for me, and you might agree that the problem I had with like, and it would have been any sport I played at the high school level, is like I just wasn't really like prepared for, and I don't think anybody prepares you for like the grind that is high school sports. I mean, you're talking about you go from like your local town sports, which is what you have a practice once a week and a game once a week, maybe twice a week, right?
Yeah.
Half of your week is dedicated to baseball in that situation. Whereas obviously in high school, your whole week, because you have practice Saturdays.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sometimes games Saturdays. But the hardest thing was just like, because I also took school seriously. So, I was, doing my work, studying, trying to do well, as most of us were, not all players, but, and that's the hard thing is being a student athlete. And I don't think like you really can be prepared for that. You just kind of have to have that. And, looking back, it's really not that much to ask, but I just, at the time and in high school, there's a lot of other influences, we were kind of opening up socially and there's a lot of other things you wanted to do that like sports really kind of got in the way of, and I think we all get to that point with sports where it's like, how far am I really going to go with this? I've had my fun. It's kind of time to, I guess kind of hang it up at some point.
Got to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, we loved playing baseball. We dedicated a lot of time to it. Like, you did fall ball, right?
So I would do fall ball and I would do summer. So I was playing all year aside from the winter, but even during winter, we were doing like, trainings. So, I mean, I was used to playing like all year, but, for whatever reason, high school just kind of changes. And there's a lot of politics too. And, high school ball and who knows who and this, that, and other thing. And I felt like, the team that we had, there were like so many different cliques and groups within the team. And I felt like that kind of took away from it. Cause I always remember, growing up, we were all close on a team.
Yeah.
So it was a little, I don't know. That was just kind of my vibe.
I feel you. No, it's a different animal in high school. It's just, it gets taken a lot more seriously, which, is all well and good. But I came to realize just how not great at baseball I was. Like, I definitely peaked in in Little League and maybe prep a little bit. But yeah, high school really was a humbling experience for me. I was not great, especially I think year 2. Struggled a lot. And it's tough with school, homework and tests and all those pressures and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then having to go struggle to try to earn a starting spot, after school playing baseball. And baseball is such a mental sport. I definitely didn't have the mental fortitude to play it. As you know, I had a really bad case of the yips my final year.
Shit. No.
Or was it the final year?
It was freshman year.
I think I eventually got over it a little bit. Yeah. So long story short, I went through a really weird stretch, and this happens. This happens to professionals sometimes, but it was really bad for me. I was so in my head about throwing the ball, especially, that I couldn't throw. I couldn't aim. I couldn't throw accurately whatsoever. Like, we would always warm up before games or before practice, like having long toss but we were next to each other. Like, everybody on the team would have long toss with a partner, and we're like maybe 10 feet from each other tops.
Yeah. So for context, Ryan and I were usually throwing partners.
Yes.
So we're the ones having a catch. Everyone's paired up, and then you start close, get your arm loose, and then you keep expanding the distance until you're throwing, much further. And then I don't know, I don't remember like exactly when it started, like what triggered it, but like one day, like we're trying to have a catch to warm up, and like this dude is straight up throwing the ball like into the ground 2 feet in front of him. Like,
yeah,
what happened is I think your brain, like you got stuck on where to release the ball, and you were just holding it, and then you would just throw it like down into the ground. It was the most bizarre thing, and it was like a few weeks.
It was a while. It was longer than that, I think. It went on for most of the season, but at least the first half of the season. I worked my ass off to get rid of that. I would go out with my dad afterwards. We would be out for a couple hours throwing. Like, I would just throw to him, and when I was throwing to him, I was fine. It was really just like I felt this immense pressure and anxiety when I was with you guys and coaches and everything, feeling like I had to be perfect each time, and that I just didn't want it. I just didn't want it to happen because I felt like an idiot. I don't know what triggered it. I think it just happened a couple of times, and then it became a mental thing. And then I was thinking of every throw I was thinking, and it just was such a slippery slope. And that's a real shame because I love throwing baseball. Like, having a catch is my favorite thing in the world. Now I'm fine. I'm playing pickleball. I'm throwing the ball across the court right on target each friggin' time. everyone's like, "Oh, you're the best thrower in pickleball." And I'm like, "Thanks." If only you knew my history. And then so that obviously like ruined, like that really put a damper on the fun for in high school for me. And also I just couldn't hit. I sucked at hitting. I walked a lot in high school. I had like a 350 OBP, which our coach called out at one of our banquets one year. I think I was one of the team leaders in OBP, even though but in limited at bats, obviously. And I just couldn't hit. I would strike out or I would pop up, and it was not fun. I remember one of the final games we played, I got a nice little hit down the line, like over the first baseman's head, and felt so damn good. So I always carry that memory. That was one of the last times I ever swung the bat in any like organized game. You and I just decided to call it quits. I think we had to talk about it, and we were like, we just can't. It's not fun anymore.
So what happened? Yeah, is like I was not having fun. So I played freshman year, and then we played JV sophomore year, and then junior year, like we started to, we're making a lot of friends, like trying to go out more, like. So what I did was like, and there was a coach on the varsity team at the time that like most people didn't like.
We did not like,
and
this
I
guy.
was just not. I wasn't going to play, but I also wasn't going to say that I'm not playing. So like, I vividly remember like pretty much dogging the tryout, like, you know what I mean? Like fielding grounders, mad slow, like, shitty throws, like just not looking like I want to be there. Like basically, putting on the body language, like, you better cut me. And so I did get cut, which I know like that kind of sounds like, oh, of course you're saying you did it on purpose, but like I know I could have made that team because I know I could have. I was a starter the year before. I didn't want to play, and I didn't want to play baseball anymore, and I didn't want to play for the coach that we were going to be playing for because we were jumping up the varsity. And there were like I said, there were a lot of other things that we wanted to be doing. You're a high school kid. You're what, like 16 years old at that time, so like. Like we're on the horizon, like driving's on the horizon, like just your freedom. And so you just think about how like for the whole spring, you'd be kind of like a prisoner. And it just, at that point I had played baseball for I don't know, like 11, 12 years.
Most of our lives.
Yeah. So I was like, I think it's kind of done here. So yeah. So that was kind of the end of baseball, but we are still very much into baseball as fans. I was always a fan of watching baseball growing up too. So I think some of the best times were as a kid, like trying to emulate, who you watch on, on TV.
Oh, the batting stances, man.
The stances, or even just all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean?
Pitching windups.
Yeah, like I just remember even like the gear, right? Like just I wanted like the gloves that people had, like you know what I mean, like. Not the bats because we didn't use wooden bats, but you know what I mean? Just like the cleats, all the armbands, like sweatbands were like a new trend when we were playing when we were kids. So I was decked out in like Under Armour, and it was just,
I do remember that. You rocked it.
Yeah, definitely. But
good.
Yeah, it was fun times. But as with everything, all good things come to an end. So I think we can kind of talk about now, how baseball exists in our current lives. Obviously, we watch a lot of baseball, and funny enough, I think it's pretty evident just from past episodes, but also what we're wearing. Ryan's a Phillies fan. I'm a Mets fan. I'm just going to get that out of the way now. So listen, I have the thickest skin. I've heard it all. Right? Bring on the hate. It's deserved because, to be honest, nobody hates being a Mets fan more than a Mets fan. It is true. It's painful every year, but it started with Mike Piazza. I'll just kind of leave it at that. I was a kid watching Mike Piazza. I was like, dude, this guy, he's got the flow. He's a catcher. It was just a vibe. I don't know what it was. He was my favorite player.
He's a legend. I mean, I have mad respect for Mike Piazza. He was awesome. Was your dad a Mets fan or was he a Phillies fan?
No, Phillies fan.
Okay, so this is just all you're doing.
Yep. Yep. No,
Right.
no influences. Like none of my friends growing up were Mets fans.
You chose violence.
Yeah, but that's kind of like that's very on brand
True.
for me.
Well, the Mets had some really good teams when we were growing up in those early to mid 2000s.
Yeah, I mean they've always had like off and on good teams. Just like they do the Mets shit. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, in regards to the Phils Mets rivalry, I mean the Phillies definitely had the Mets number for a little bit early, especially 2007. But I mean, as of late, the Mets own the Phillies in the regular season. They've yet to play a playoff series against each other, but
I know that
regular season's been rough for the Phils. They've had a couple of good wins, but overall the Mets have dominated. It's not been fun when the Phils play the Mets for the most part.
which is great because I always at least once a year will take my dad to a Phillies Mets game, so it kind of works out, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because I actually just because of where we are, we get more of the Phillies games, so I actually watch probably more Phillies baseball. But it's like you're kind of like you're scouting out your opponents kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
and you're texting the scouting report to the Mets organization.
Exactly, yeah, the tendencies and everything. Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, pitch Bryce up and in, he can't reach it.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, I remember one of my least favorite memories in the last couple of years was going to a Mets Phillies game, and we sat in the upper level. Awful decision because this was the game that the one Mets fan bought like 500 tickets or something, like, or 1,000 tickets. And there was and this just the cherry on top there where the Phillies had a promotion going or something, or an incentive. If you bought a certain number of tickets, then you got to throw the first pitch out before the game. So before this particular game, this Mets fan, decked out in Mets gear, takes the mound at Citizens Bank Park and throws the first pitch, and he got eviscerated by the Phillies fans.
Sure.
And shame on the Phillies organization for even allowing that to happen. And to make matters worse, the Mets destroyed the Phillies that game. They won by it was like they scored 10 plus runs. The Phillies only scored a couple. The section that we sat in though were the upper levels, which were the cheaper seats, obviously. So this guy bought out basically our whole section. So it's me and my family, and then we're surrounded by a sea of Mets fans, and it was all Mets the entire game. The Phillies never had a fucking chance. So they're just going ham. They're singing. They've got like cowbells, and it's like being at a soccer game. These guys are chanting their Mets chants. I sent you a video of it.
Oh, dude, sure. I remember you texting me about this, and I thought it was like
2 years ago.
I kind of actually felt bad because I just know how much you like going to Phillies games, and I was like, that's rough.
It was my least favorite Phillies game I've ever been to.
That's rough.
And I've been to like games that have been canceled because of rain. Like they play a couple innings and they get postponed. Like that was my worst experience. And then that walking out of the stadium and Mets fans are all just they're way too happy, and it made me so upset. But yeah, I'm a Phillies fan, obviously, and like you said, Mike Piazza got you into the Mets. I'm a late bloomer in my Philadelphia sports fandom, at least. I didn't really start watching Philadelphia sports regularly until how old was I? Like 12, maybe.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I was aware, obviously, and like I went to games, but I didn't start following like religiously, especially the Phillies, until around then. And then obviously like the mid 2000s teams with Howard and Rollins and Utley and Hamels and all those amazing players in those teams. Like I couldn't have became a fan at a better time because my exposure to Phillies baseball was just basically winning. The earlier years, you could tell like they were getting better and closer, and they had a good group, a young group of players that they could build around, and they definitely met their potential. And I had so much fun watching those teams growing up. It just made me fall in love with the sport even more, and fall in love with the Phillies. Just like so many great memories watching those teams growing up, and just some of my favorite athletes of all time on those teams. And, I stuck through them, obviously, through the rebuild years, 2012, basically, to just up about a couple years ago, really in 2019, 2020, when Harper got here. That was really when things turned around. Actually, you know what? I'll go a little further back. When Rhys Hoskins got here, things started to really turn around because he was the first player to come up that was really the dawn of a new beginning. And then when Harper got here, everything changed. Obviously the Phillies are very competitive right now. They have one of the best teams in baseball, and I'm very much looking forward to this season. They fell short terribly last year. It was one of the most miserable collapses I've been a part of. You had that on top of the Eagles collapse. It was just it's been a rough few months for the sports. But yeah, I'm very hopeful this year. I think they have fielded a great team. They didn't have to make a lot of changes this offseason. They've only made a couple moves, but you got some guys come back that are going to be healthy to start the year, and I think they're just they need to get off to a fast start.
Well, yeah, the Phillies on paper are like, I've said it the last 2 years. I mean, that's a lineup you look at, and there's and even more so this year because some of those guys Bohm started to come around. You know what I mean?
Stoddy.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a lineup where there's not a ton of weaknesses. So I think personnel wise, the Phillies have the talent. It's just a matter. I mean, and that's the hard thing about baseball is it's such a long regular season, and then even the postseason is long. And the postseason, you're starting to play in different weather again. You know what I mean? It really there's a lot that changes, and unlike other sports, it's not one game. Baseball is a game of series. So there's a lot of momentum shifts back and forth, and there's a lot of game within the game, with, who's pitching and, load management, blah, 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 all that kind of shit. So it's a long season. So that's why I kind of think the World Series is the hardest thing to win.
Well, yeah.
Maybe that or the Stanley Cup, if we're talking main sports, just in terms of the length of the season and just there's just so many variables. And just the need to consistently perform, and I don't know. It's tough. I certainly think the Phillies will be probably close to back where they were last year. I mean, I think it was the year prior they lost in the World Series.
Yeah, lost to the Astros, and then they had their awful collapse against the Diamondbacks in the NLCS last year. They were up 2-0 and 2-1 and had a chance to go 3-1, and
they blew it at home, if I remember right.
Yeah, I was at Game 6, and you could feel the energy being zapped out of the stadium at the end of that game.
They literally had them, because I remember saying this. I was like, they have them exactly where they want them. You know what I mean? They won game 1. Did they win game 1 and 2?
Yeah, they won game 1 and 2 in Philly. They went to Arizona, lost heartbreaking game 3. I think they lost in the bottom of the 9th or bottom of the 10th, on a walk-off. And then
I remember that.
Game 4 was really the game that...
Didn't they give up a lead, a pretty big lead there in game 4?
Game 4 was the game, I think, that Kimbrel came in and gave up 3 or 4 runs in the 8th inning.
Yeah, okay. That's the game I remember watching, thinking, I think they're done.
7th or 8th inning, I forget. I haven't gone back and relived that, so I don't. Memory's a little foggy, but yeah, Kimbrel blew up that game, and then, or was it game 5? I think it was game 4. And in game 5, the Phillies, I think, came back and won that game. And they're going home 3-2. You're like, okay, series is over. They got to win one of the next 2 at home. Easy peasy. You got Noel on the mound. And I think you had Ranger on the mound in game 7. Nope. The bats went severely cold, went ice cold. The pitching was fine. The pitching did their part. Starters, bullpen. The bats just went ice cold. And that's what happens in baseball, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Go hot and you go cold. And
well, the other thing is too, it's I feel like that happened a lot to Philly is, that lineup, if everyone can click, it's absolutely lethal. But it's like, and most lineups do this, right? You have guys that are like, playing well, they're hot, and then you have guys that are slumping, and that's just how baseball is. And who carries the load kind of changes, over time. But I feel like the Phillies had a lot of situations throughout the season, even where it's like the pitching is great, the hitting is bad. The hitting is great, the pitching is bad. And it's like, when can you try to get both sides of the ball on the same page? And sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Obviously, that's the whole goal. But I just felt like the Phillies had a lot of inconsistency with their pitching.
Yeah, well, the pitching wasn't necessarily the bullpen. The starting pitching was good overall.
Yeah, bullpen was bad, right?
Kimbrel lost it. I mean, Kimbrel in the second half last season was just bad. He was actually really good. He was an all-star, I think, last year. He had a really good first half of the season, and he's older, so he just ran out of gas second half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Thompson decided to still trust him in the playoffs in high leverage situations. That blew up in his face. But he's not here anymore, and so he won't be around for Thompson to make that same mistake again, which is good. And yeah, I'm excited. They have a really good squad going into this year. The offense should be prolific. We'll see what happens. Everyone's healthy. Knock on wood. Still have a couple of spring training games left.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you expect the Mets to do this season? Were you excited?
Well, I mean, we've already no, not necessarily. They've basically came out and said last year, like, the next couple seasons are, rebuild. Obviously, they're going to try to be as competitive as they can, but the focus is probably more on like 2025, more like 2026. And I'm okay with that. I'm always the person that, like, I always say, you need to recognize the rebuild sooner rather than later. And there's too many organizations that, like, don't catch on to that. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to admit, like, hey, you know what? We're going to suck for the next few years. Nobody wants to say that, but I think the sooner in any sport that you can recognize that, the better off you are, because you can't lie to yourself. And the Mets just, they fell into the trap, of paying like legacy money, right? You're paying older guys, as in Verlander and Scherzer, right? Who, listen, I'm not discrediting their talent and what they've done, but it's really hard to just, I don't know, expect that you're just going to throw a bunch of money at something and, like, suddenly now you're just going to win a World Series.
Yeah.
And it clearly didn't work. And I think they put a lot of money in wrong spots. I just, you know what I mean? Like, Scherzer and Verlander, I don't think either were, like, healthy at the same time.
Yeah. No, it was rough.
And then, so it's, I don't know. And again, these are dudes that are at the end of their career, and so to expect that, like, they're going to carry your team, I don't know. It's hindsight's always 2020, right? Like, so obviously if we balled out, it would have been like, oh, those are the best moves ever made. But, that's kind of my issue. And then, youth wise, I mean, Beatty, I don't know. I'm going to kind of see what this season looks like. I don't really think he's what they think he is.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see.
We'll find out.
That's the beauty of baseball, is like a player can take a huge leap from one year to the next, more so than in other sports, which is exciting.
And actually, Jeff McNeil kind of took a step back last season. The year before, he was so solid. Last year wasn't as. So I'm hoping he can get back to his form. And then, Pete Alonso's Pete Alonso.
He'll hit his 40-plus homers and 100-plus RBIs and bat like 230.
Yeah, that'll be him. And Lindor, listen, I like Lindor as a player. I think he's, I think he's a quality player, but he's not the Cleveland Lindor.
No, he's not. Not yet. Well, I mean,
and I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he has a renaissance here this season. I mean, he hasn't been bad for the Mets, but he has not been what they paid him to be.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I like him as a player, and you can't say that, like, nothing is necessarily, so to speak, like, his fault. Not that anything is one player's fault, but I just keep saying, like, it's funny enough, actually the other day I was watching like Lindor highlights from Cleveland, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like what the fuck? It's
Yeah,
just,
he was the top shortstop in baseball.
yeah. And I just, in terms of, well, fielding last year, if you remember at the end of the season, it actually turned into like a circus. There were like pop-ups in the infield just
Oh my God,
dropping
yeah,
between players.
I
Like,
do remember. I do remember
I
seeing
think
a couple
Beatty
of
got
those.
hit in the head,
Yeah,
or
something like that.
something
He
goofy.
lost in the lights.
Yeah,
Hit him in the head.
It was a shit show. So we'll see. I don't have, my expectations are low. I just kind of want to, have some positive takeaways here and just keep developing some of the young guys, and I guess kind of figure out what the future holds. We have we're kind of relying on some veteran pitchers for our starting rotation.
Yeah.
So
well, not as veteran as as
no,
Verlander and Scherzer.
not quite. But
listen, I respect Cohen for making the splash last year, because I mean, Verlander was coming off a World Series, and Scherzer really hasn't lost. He's lost a couple of miles per hour for his fastball, but he's a guy that's adjusted, and he's just a pitcher, and he knows how to pitch, and he hasn't shown really any signs of slowing down now. He couldn't stay healthy last season, unfortunately.
yeah, no, I don't.
But...
Again, I'm not saying like, at the time it's like, okay, that's great, but I'm just saying like, I think it's naive to think that like just throwing money at everything fixes, you know what I mean? Like money doesn't necessarily buy championships.
Not in baseball.
To a certain extent, exactly, because there's too many variables in baseball.
Yeah.
It's different than like a lot of the other sports, and I just think you're also dealing with there's a synergy. You know what I mean? Like in football, there's a synergy, but like if you just get the star running back and you have some star receivers, like shit's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Whether they gel or not, like for the most part, numbers will be put up. But in baseball, guys have to fit in certain spots in the lineup. They have to assume certain roles, play certain positions, and it all kind of has to just, sync up. And it doesn't always work, just like anything else.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies owner, Middleton, he's another guy that likes to throw money at players, and he's done so. He wants to win a championship, and he's done so. He's made it loud and clear with his wallet. He's paying Harper and Turner combined like $700 million. Harper already wants a contract extension, so we'll see how that happens. We'll see how that goes over the next few months to a couple of years, and you got to appreciate owners in baseball that like to spend money. And
sure.
I talked to my dad. He's an Orioles fan, and they sold the team this past offseason, which thank God, because they actually have an owner that might be willing to actually improve the team by throwing money at players that can make a difference, instead of just relying on prospects. And I know they have a couple of guys in the pipeline, Jackson Holiday in particular, who looks awesome. By the way, he hit a grand slam the other day. But he's always talking to me like, why don't they make, like when Shohei was still available, he's like, why, like they're not going to even like entertain Shohei. They're not going to make an offer for Yamamoto, which they shouldn't. I mean, they were the top team in baseball last year record-wise. I think they had the best record in baseball. They were up there. They were in the top 2 or 3 at least. They're a young team too. They just need some veteran infusion.
Here's the thing. Baseball is unique too because there are just so many positions that like you have to fill, and like it's like, you know what I mean? Like you have to look at, not only starting pitching, but your bullpen, your depth, right? Your closer. You also have to obviously have good fielders, and you have to mix in power and contact hitters, and guys that are good against lefties and guys that are good against righties, and blah blah blah. Like you need a lot of different roles, and look at the Angels. They had Trout and Ohtani. I mean,
Rendon, who doesn't want to play or doesn't care about playing.
He's an asshole, but on paper it's like, holy shit, like those are 2 like top 5 players in the league, and
they didn't sniff the playoffs.
What do they do exactly? So it really is. It's, and I look at it like this too. It's not really like star power. You need, because if you blow too much on one position, right, one guy, you're sacrificing in other positions. And there's a lot of like mid-tier utility guys that are super effective in baseball.
Hugely important. I mean, what was who was the Cardinals player back in like 2010 when they won the World Series that year that went on that insane run? What was his name? Damn it, I forget. But he was a guy that wasn't really like a big star, and he put the team on his back in the playoffs, and they went on a run and won the World Series.
What happens in like look at the Phillies World Series where like Raul Ibanez had a great year, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have like Victorino, like, not like necessarily star names, so to speak.
I still get nightmares of Cody Ross when he was with the Giants on that run he went on, killed the Phillies in LCS, and then they went on to win the World Series that year.
So there's stuff like that too, like I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but almost like kind of like bargain bin, like that has a lot of value. So you have to be smart, and you have to have somebody that knows baseball. And again, it's not just like, oh, I'm so damn rich, I'm going to buy this ring. Yeah, it doesn't work.
You need Jonah Hill in there, like Moneyball,
exactly,
crunching the analytics, and that's just another reason I love baseball so much is because it's not like the NBA where star power wins championships. Like the Tampa Bay Rays are consistently like mid 90s to 100 wins, and I can't even name like 3 players in their team. Anyone
well, you can name one now.
Well, yeah.
Well, he's not on the team.
Yeah,
he's not in the league.
He's infamous now. Anyone can get hot. Any no-name player can make a name for themselves. And just the beauty of the sport. That's why, like, obviously everyone's so high on the Dodgers, and for good reason. Like, they've got Shohei Ohtani, they've got Freddie Freeman, they've got Mookie Betts, they've got Tyler Glasnow, they've got Muncy. I mean, all these ridiculous players. I mean, this team let Trey Turner walk. They let Cody Bellinger walk. I mean, they just said they've had an embarrassment of riches for years now. And what has it gotten them? Nothing. They've a great regular season, but they choke in the playoffs.
I agree.
Now, listen, I'm really excited to see them play this year. I'll be watching. I'm sure they'll be on TV a ton. I want to see Shohei with a new team, what he can do. And they'll make the playoffs. Like, I would be shocked, beyond shocked, if they didn't make the playoffs this year. And I want to see Shohei in the playoffs. I don't want to see him against the Phillies, and you don't want to see him against the Mets, but I want to see him in the playoffs. I want to watch Shohei on the big stage.
So I was following this for a while, but I kind of lost track. So is he going to pitch this year?
No, he can't pitch this year. Can't pitch till next year. He'll be a DH.
And are they even like, what are they, what's their, I mean, I guess we don't know now, but like, what is the idea for him pitching? Like
next year,
is he going to be, no, but I mean, like, is he going to be a starter?
Yeah, he definitely, they paid him. I mean, they didn't pay him all that money.
I know they paid him for 2 positions. I get that, but it's like, at what point are you like, you know what I mean? Like, we care about the bat probably more than the pitching.
Well, he can still hit. I mean, there's really no risk with him pitching. I mean, sure.
He could. This is his second one.
Yeah, but you can still hit with a torn UCL. So.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure it's not like, I'm sure they don't really want their $1 billion guy having anything torn.
Yeah, but they paid him all that money, and he's going to pitch because he's too good of a pitcher to not, and they want to put fannies in the seats. And Major League Baseball will never let that happen. They'll be like, this guy needs to pitch or else. This needs to happen.
I'm going to be really curious to see what that looks like for him. Like, is he going to be like a Nola where like he hits the 4th inning and just collapses? Is he going to lose? He's got to lose a little velocity.
Well, sometimes these pitchers come back stronger from Tommy John,
But this is his second time. I don't think that's the case.
We'll see. I mean, I wouldn't get anything past him. He's a freak athlete. He's a generational talent. Let's see. I would bet my money that he comes back and maybe he's not like the Cy Young candidate pitcher that he was a couple years ago. But I mean, I'm sure he'll be fine. And
I agree.
He'll get stronger as the year goes on.
He's a freak athlete. So
yeah, he's a unicorn. He's awesome. I'm hoping the best for him. And they got Yamamoto, which which sucked because the Phillies reportedly had the biggest offer.
But he wanted to play with
He
Shohei.
wanted to play with his idol. I mean, the Phillies had everything but Shohei. And if they had Shohei, they would have easily gotten him. But Harper apparently made a nice sales pitch with a PowerPoint and whatnot. I don't know. I want to see this PowerPoint. Like, what was on it? Like,
well, part of me thinks that's why the Mets went for Senga is, you know what I mean? Like, there's reasons to like get some of these, you know, these players in your organization aside from just their pure talent. Is like you can draw other international players there. You know what I mean? So I think that's a pretty unique aspect. But I'm thinking, you know, obviously top teams, Dodgers. I don't love, but I still think the Braves are absolutely stacked.
They're going to be great. Obviously, the Braves are. It's a shame that they're in the same division as the Phillies and the Mets because they're gonna be hard to dethrone for a while now. They've got all those young guys locked up. They're gonna be a problem for a while. And we'll see what happens come playoff time. They've obviously choked the last couple of years, so much to my enjoyment. But I don't think that's going to continue every year. Like they're too talented and whatnot to not figure it out. Maybe their strategy will be to throw games at the end of the season so the Phillies can have the division and then they can get the 4 days rest and get a little cold.
There you go.
Maybe tank for the wild card so you can just keep playing and not lose momentum. I like that strategy.
Yeah, well, to be honest, in baseball, that's a thing. I mean, you know, time off
certainly is.
You lose timing, you lose vision, you lose a lot of stuff.
It's a kiss of death in baseball. I mean, I think players like the rest, obviously, but if you had to ask them, like, hey, does this affect your performance? Hell yeah, it does. I mean,
I think you need it more. The rest you need more for the pitching staff.
Yeah, pitchers can rest and come back and still be effective, but hitters, like, timing is everything.
Especially if you're hot. If you're slumping, it's probably good, but if you're hot, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's
the last thing you want. But yeah, so I'm excited. 2024 season. I'm looking forward to windows open in the house, TV's on around 1 o'clock, and I just hear baseball.
Yeah, I'm so hyped, man. I'm going. Well, I haven't got my tickets yet, but my dad and I have been going to opening day for the Phils since 2007. So,
nice.
We got to keep the tradition going, and we plan on being there again next year. But there's nothing like opening day. Like opening day is just so special of a day. Like I always go. Like I just said, take off work, go to the game, enjoy with my dad. It's just a great time, and I'm thankful that the Phillies ballpark is what it is. I think it's one of the top ballparks in the sport. It's just such a nice spot. It's like my second home. I love going there. But yeah, I feel you, man. The weather's changing. It was light out till about 8 o'clock, 7:45, 8 o'clock tonight. Just brought a tear to my eye. But yeah, I'm so excited for this time of year, and then you got baseball all summer long, and hopefully it's fun for both of us. You know, I'm not saying I hope the Mets are good, but you know, I hope that you don't have a miserable summer with the Mets.
Well, saving grace, and you know, we're not going to have time to talk about it this episode, but I would like to kind of hash this out a little bit at some point. But saving grace is we have MLB the Show. Yeah, we have MLB the Show. And I can make my own destiny there.
Yeah, to bring it back to the podcast roots a little bit, Chris and I are big into MLB the Show, which is the best baseball video game simulation on the market, and it has been for a while. Yeah, that comes out in a couple weeks, and we're going to be grinding that co-op for sure. We'll definitely talk about that in the future. We'll have to recap some games and whatnot, and just. It's such a fun co-op experience. Like it's besides the games crashing, which they better fix this year. That better be addressed. That better not be a thing.
Dude, I would have rather the game just crash than the freeze. That is just like, or because it would freeze, what I mean. And like it would just be. This is all I would say.
Oh yeah, just the fingers.
Like the batter, everyone's stuck on the field, and I just see the batter's fingers going like this. Like, get the hell out of here. That shit's annoying.
It's so annoying, and it's like it happens at the worst time too. It's never like early in the game. It's always like middle innings or late innings. Like you're
making a comeback. Runners on second and third.
Yeah, the most intense moment of the game, and then all of a sudden you throw one pitch in the dirt or something, or it's usually on a foul ball. I find it's usually like when a foul ball happens, and then you just know like 3 seconds into it, you're like, we're done.
Done.
This sucks. And you're just praying to the gods that it'll fix itself. But
so defeating. But well, I think we'll dedicate an episode, or at least part of an episode, to that. Because I have a lot that I would want to say about MLB the Show. But let's do our quick segment here. For those of you who don't know, we do a segment every episode called Off the Clock, where we discuss what it is that we are looking forward to doing after work, hence Off the Clock, this week. I'll start off by saying I'm looking forward to gaming, sleeping. No, just kidding. I'm looking forward to, honestly, I've just been grinding a lot of COD, a lot of ranked Warzone.
Yeah, I've seen your Snapchats.
Yeah, the resurgence mode on Fortune's Keep. So I'm stuck in Diamond 1 right now. It's kind of hard to get like the squad together at the same, like, you know what I mean? It's just really hard to get everyone on at the same time. And it's not like I'm at a point where I can't really solo queue it, because like we're in some tough lobbies that we need to be, you need to be able to like talk and not have like, weirdos. So that's what I'm looking forward to. But when I play it, I get pissed, and then I realize I'm not looking forward to it. So I don't know. So that's kind of me.
What's can you explain diamond rank in Warzone in Apex terms? Is that diamond equivalent in Apex or like platinum?
Well, yeah. So it actually goes the same. So COD ranks, it's bronze, silver, gold, plat, diamond.
Oh, okay.
But then after that, there's crimson, then iridescent, and then top 250. So top 250 is obviously the top 250 players. Yeah. Based on SR, which is your rank points. So like diamond is like probably, I guess, it's like above average. I would say like probably gold, plat, because within each rank, there's like, it'll be like, for example, it's like diamond 1, then you go diamond 2, then diamond 3, then you go crimson, which is the next one.
Okay, so there's only 3 tiers in each rank. 3 levels in each tier. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's kind of the idea. So it's fun. And listen, I love Battle Royale. I love Warzone. So I love the added, like, competitive aspect and grinding and just trying to keep gaining SR. It's such a struggle.
Yeah.
They pulled, like, they did some shit mid-season. Like, they just had a mid-season update, and they like changed the way you gain SR, and they've kind of made it more difficult. And like, in my opinion, I don't think kills get you enough points.
It's more placement.
Like, I'm at a point where like I could get like probably 5 kills, finish top 10, and go negative and lose SR.
Really?
Yeah, because there's a death penalty. So when you die, you lose points for that. But you just don't get shit for kills, and you don't really get a lot for placement until you hit like top 5.
Interesting.
So it's kind of punishing, especially at the higher end, where it's like, like my buy-in is 50 SR, but it's like super hard. You know what I mean? It's hard to go positive. So you have a lot of people camping. So you'll have like an end zone with like 8 teams left.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how ranked should be. Apex had the same issue, and that's the thing. Like, I don't envy any of these devs trying to balance a ranked battle royale. Like, no one's ever going to be happy with the system.
Sure, because if you like to camp, and they reward kills, you hate that, right? Because then you're just getting aped. But then vice versa, if you want to ape people, right, your gun skill's real good, but because you're aggressive, you're not going to get the placement. You know what I mean? So it is. You have to play a balanced game, but in the end, it rewards people sitting there, because you can get 3-4 kills in top 4 and go positive, versus I could get like 6 or 7 kills and finish 11th place and go negative.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can find good balance, but it's so tough with BR.
It's also a resurgence mode too. So like you come back.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like when I die, as long as my teammates are alive, there's a timer that starts, and once that timer hits 0, I drop back in.
Is that on the
Right?
regular Warzone map, or is that on the smaller one?
It's on a small map, Fortune's Key.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it's very fun. It's very accessible, but it's it's in its infancy because they've done ranked Warzone, but traditional battle royale where when you die, you die. You have to be bought back if you don't win
Yeah.
your gulag. So this is different because there's a lot of tactics. You have like really good teams that'll farm people, right? So instead of killing that last person,
Yeah.
they'll leave them alive so that the team will come back and then they'll kill them again. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
farming.
like
Yeah.
it gets a little
That's
wonky.
so yeah, that's
but
hit or miss. But I use some games on that still. I would be down to play some more Warzone.
yeah, you owe me a lot.
I
But
owe you out a lot in life.
so what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so I have been dabbling where I've been looking at some shows and whatnot I want to watch. I just watched the Oscars yesterday, so I only saw Oppenheimer and Barbie as two of the nominations for Best Picture. But I have access to watch a couple other ones. Like I want to watch Poor Things, the Emma Stone one. I want to watch The Holdovers with Paul Giamatti. There's a couple other ones that I want to check out, but I think I'm going to check out both those, The Holdovers and Poor Things, this week at some point. And then there's a new show on FX, I think, that's streaming on Hulu called Shogun, and it's supposed to be incredibly authentic. Yeah, takes place in like 1600s Japan, like the age of the samurai.
Yeah,
and it just looks so authentic, and I've heard a lot of people compare it to like early days of Game of Thrones, which makes me really excited because obviously Game of Thrones was an incredible work of art, masterpiece of a show up until the last couple seasons. But yeah, I'm going to probably start that at some point. It's a weekly show, so they're 3 episodes in right now, so I'll catch up. And,
that's good.
Watch it weekly, yeah. So I'm going to watch some things, and then on the side, I'll still be grinding some Helldivers. As of this recording, I've got close to 70 hours logged, and I just love that game so much. It's so silly. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to be doing this week.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Speaking of baseball, if you don't want to be a bench warmer, follow us on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter, at 5 o'clock sweats. Of course, if you like to watch us and look at all the awkward things that we do on camera during our podcast, you can definitely check us out on YouTube. Don't forget to, like and subscribe. And of course, you'd love to hear our voices. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you can get podcasts that isn't a total waste of time is where you can find us at 5 o'clock sweats. I think we got everything, right?
Yes, sir. This was a good first duo episode for us. I think
good duo. Yeah, let's not tell Derek about this one. We'll tell him it went poorly.
Yeah, well, I don't want to tell him that because then he won't have fun editing it. But we miss Derek and we love Derek, and we.
Well, Derek, when you see this, we missed you. Listen, this didn't work out. We need our third leg back. We need the tripod.
We need we need that big third leg dangling.
Yeah, we need the tripod.
We need that thing.
All right.
I'm falling over without it.
As always, much love and stay sweaty.
Oh man, that felt good. Shit. Damn.
Sheesh.
Derek's gonna think I'm cheating on him or something. Like we had some good chemistry right there. That was probably the most perfect timing that we've had. It felt good.
That's because I'm usually the one that fucks it up. So if I go first,
that's the trick. All right. Well, maybe moving forward, you can be the one that does the sign off.
All right.
Derek's got it to a T.